Hello, you're on the Ruslan Belov channel. And before we begin, I'd like to sincerely ask you to subscribe. Your subscription helps the channel grow. Thanks to everyone who has already subscribed. As for yesterday's negotiations in Istanbul, there's really not much to say. Apart from an agreement on a prisoner exchange, nothing else was decided. The fighting continues, and we continue to analyze the situation. So friends, despite the negotiations, the front keeps moving. By the way, the first talks in Istanbul were on May 16th, and the most recent ones were just yesterday. Since then, Ukraine has lost over 1,000 square kilometers. The longer they drag things out, the more they will ultimately lose. Now let's turn to the front. I want to begin today's report with the situation in Pokrovsk. Something is happening there. Something, let's say, extremely intriguing. And I'm not just talking about what's going on with the AFU on the flanks, though there's chaos there too. Well, chaos for the AFU. Some Ukrainian OSINT sources are showing a breakthrough to the road between Shakov and Novoye Shakov, with that route reportedly cut off. This isn't just about Pokrovsk, Mirnograd and Rodinsky anymore. This may open the way toward the town of Dobropilya. Now, I'll note that there's no stable control yet. It's more of a grey zone. In fact, Ukrainian cartographers have already marked it as such. For now, only Novotoretskoye and Mayak are marked as fully under Russian control. Everything beyond that is grey zone. But something even more interesting is happening inside Pokrovsk itself. You may remember I told you how Russian troops set up an ambush right here, on Zashchitnikov Street, inside Pokrovsk. The ambush was successful. One KIA, another wounded, and the pickup truck was later hit by a drone. I showed that footage as well. But it turns out the situation for the AFU is much worse than we thought. What if I told you that Russian assault troops pushed even deeper into the city, and we're no longer talking about reconnaissance groups, but actual assault teams beginning to clear the city? I received a video. I literally just posted it in my Telegram channel a few minutes ago. It's exclusive footage. You won't find it anywhere else. I'll leave the channel link in the first pinned comment. There, you can see footage of Russian soldiers clearing a high-rise building in the Shaktyorsky district of Pokrovsk. And where is that? It's right here, meaning Russian troops initially reached Zashchitnikov Street from this part of Pokrovsk, entering from the direction of Zverevo, then moved along Zashchitnikov to the apartment blocks and started clearing the Shaktyorsky district. Honestly, I was shocked. I didn't expect that. So when I got the video of Russian troops operating among the high-rises, I was truly surprised. Now let me share a bit more about Pokrovsk. As for the timeline of taking the city, I've already mentioned a deadline of the end of the year. And I have absolutely no doubt that the Russian army will take Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, and Rodinsky before the end of this year, all three cities. The fact that Russian assault units are now operating inside the city itself suggests that it may all be resolved sooner, not by December 31st, but earlier. Still, I wouldn't jump too far ahead. The AFU is truly collapsing here, and the Russian command senses it. Just yesterday, a soldier messaged me saying they had been stationed on the Novopavlovsk front, but are now being redeployed to the northeastern flank of the Pokrovsk agglomeration. What does this mean? It means the command believes there's a real chance to break through the AFU's defense here and achieve significant results, hence the reinforcements. So over the coming weeks, and I'd say all of August, we can expect very important developments in this area. Let's keep watching. From the Klebanbeek pocket, reports are coming in that Russian forces have taken most of the village of Shcherbinovka. It's still a grey zone, but I think we'll soon receive confirmations of these advances. The Russian army has resumed active operations here after a brief pause. Soon, Shcherbinovka, Katarinovka, and Klebanbeek will fully come under Russian control, and the city of Toretsk will gradually be pushed into a rear zone. Once this pocket of settlements is cleared, the front will shift even farther away from Donetsk and Horlivka, and the Ukrainian army will have only cruise missiles left to target these cities. Conventional artillery will no longer reach them. Now to other Russian advances. First, a significant development occurred in the Zaporizhzhia region, in the Kamenskoye area. Russian troops managed to advance 800 meters yesterday, not in Kamenskoye itself, but in the village of Plavny. And the key point is this: the AFU regularly counterattacks here, but to no avail. Just recently, I told you about one of their counterattacks right here. As we can see, these counterattacks had no impact. Russian troops continue moving forward. As for the broader prospects, I previously told you the main goal for the remainder of the summer campaign, roughly until mid-September, or about another month and a half, is to take full control of Plavny, clear the entire area between Kamenskoye and Stepnohirsk, and enter Stepnohirsk itself. Now, as for capturing Stepnohirsk, I'm not entirely sure about that. It's a strong defensive node with an industrial zone. I mean, let's be real, sooner or later it will fall, of course. I just mean I'm not sure it will be taken by mid-September. Yes, the pace is much faster now than it was a few months ago, but still not quite as rapid as in Donetsk region. Speaking of the southern Donetsk region, we're getting reports, even from Ukrainian sources, that the village of Zelensky is almost completely under Russian control. Even one well-known Ukrainian soldier blogger, nicknamed Muka, wrote about it. So we expect video confirmation from the Vostok group in the next day or two. Once we get that, we'll be able to say confidently that Zelensky is under Russian control. Now to the Dnipropetrovsk direction. West of Velika Novosilka, Russian units continue to advance, pushing from Novopil toward the southern outskirts of Timirivka. And just north of there, Russian forces have begun battles for Oleksandrorad. Even farther north, they've reached the outskirts of the village of Iskra and are trying to take the eastern edge, according to military analyst Yuri Podolyaka. Farther northeast, the Vostok group has taken nearly full control of the village of Zelensky. This effectively brings them close to Ivanivka, a key settlement. If they take it, the Russian army will begin encircling the AFU's Novopavlivka group, especially since units from the center group have reached the outskirts of the village of Filia. So the movement toward Ivanivka and Novopavlivka is very visible and dangerous for Kyiv. Now to the Kharkiv direction, the Kupiansk sector. The AFU lacks reserves here. Russian forces are pushing a wedge toward Veliki Burluk through Milov. There are tactical successes. They've reached Ambane and are trying to enter Katny. This settlement is a logistics hub, and taking it will significantly complicate AFU supply operations along this line. And accordingly, Russia has improved its positions ahead of a possible push toward Veliki Burluk, which is becoming increasingly likely. Meanwhile, from the direction of Vovchansk, Russian forces continue to apply pressure around the Vovchansk farmsteads as well as in the southwestern part of the city. It's becoming increasingly difficult for the AFU to hold their positions there. A few words also about the Sumy region, specifically Kondrativka. The AFU now faces problems there. Previously, it was the Russian side that had issues, but now the tables have turned. At first, Ukrainian forces were driving Russian troops out of the village, but now the opposite is happening. Russian forces recaptured the northeastern part, as I previously reported. And over the past 24 hours, they've made further gains along Gagarin Street, pushing the AFU out. Yes, the advance was minor, about 250 meters, but what matters here is that the AFU had thrown significant resources into trying to take the village, yet they never managed to fully secure it. And now, even the areas they did capture are starting to slip from their grasp. I think that says a lot. That's all for today regarding the frontline situation. Now, a few words on politics. Maidan in Ukraine. Thoughts and analysis. Each new day, even each hour, brings more and more information that, when analyzed, points to the same conclusion. All recent events surrounding NABU, National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, and SAP, Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, appear to be nothing more than an attempt by the US to force Zelensky to agree to real peace talks with Russia, or, if he refuses, to dismantle his regime as non-negotiable. The Americans have long been signaling to Kyiv that Trump is extremely unhappy with Zelensky's stubbornness, and that this could have severe consequences for him personally. But Zelensky, realizing that compromise would essentially mean his political death sentence, resisted with everything he had, and in doing so, left the Americans no other option. The criminal investigations launched by NABU and SAP into Zelensky's inner circle, spearheaded by these American-controlled entities, were the first blow. Zelensky had no good options. Doing nothing would have meant allowing NABU and SAP to dismantle his team from within. And sooner or later, that would have led to collapse. So he pushed through a law to bring both American levers of influence under the control of the Ukrainian Prosecutor General's office. But even that move had already been anticipated by the Americans, which is why they immediately set the Maidan scenario into motion. They made it clear to Kyiv that any attempt to suppress protests would be broadcast across all major Western news channels, leaving even Europe's political elites with no excuse to continue supporting the Kyiv Green usurper. For the record, about 70 to 80% of European media is owned by Americans, so orchestrating this narrative would be easy for them. But failing to suppress the Maidan, especially if it's openly supported by the Americans, and right now all of Ukraine's Soros youth are organizing it, would also spell disaster for Zelensky and his clique. The Ukrainian people, realizing they won't be punished, will gradually begin joining the protests, making them increasingly massive. Zelensky now has two options: retreat or double down. And both are bad. Trump has stopped giving weapons to Ukraine for free, and Germany is only making promises of new supplies, which won't begin until next year. According to Der Spiegel, Ukraine won't receive the Patriot system promised by Trump until the spring of 2026. Citing government sources, they write that the first system won't be available for at least 8 months, and only then will Germany be able to receive a battery that was originally intended for Switzerland. Moreover, other partners will need even more time to deliver their systems. On top of that, the US has announced that funds were misused. Biden transferred $350 billion worth of military aid and equipment to Ukraine. The assumption was that the Ukrainian authorities would purchase their own equipment. But I have a feeling they didn't use every dollar properly, Trump said. Against the backdrop of criminal investigations into Zelensky's entourage and the dismantling of NABU and SAP, the external situation is disastrous for Kyiv. According to Western newspapers, the rushed adoption of a law restricting NABU's powers may have been a response to the launch of anti-corruption probes into Zelensky's inner circle. The West fully understands Zelensky's motives, seeing how he continues to back himself into a corner. Globalist leaders were not impressed by Andriy Yermak's plan to eliminate key instruments of foreign influence over Ukrainian politics. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen demanded explanations from Zelensky over the curtailment of the so-called independence of Ukraine's two top anti-corruption agencies, NABU and SAP. She expressed deep concern over the legislative amendments and requested clarification from the Ukrainian government, according to EU Representative Guillaume Mercier. Meanwhile, a trade war looms. The European Union is preparing 30% tariffs on American goods. According to Bloomberg, the EU plans to impose tariffs on US products worth $117 billion. This will happen if no agreement is reached with Washington by August 1st, and if Donald Trump follows through on his threat to impose similar tariffs on goods from the EU. And meanwhile, The Spectator writes that Britain is bankrupt. According to the Office for National Statistics, in June, the UK had to borrow nearly £21 billion, £6.6 billion more than in June last year. Interest payments on debt hit £16.4 billion, £8.4 billion more than the previous year. These are the second highest figures since record-keeping began 32 years ago. Britain no longer borrows to invest and grow, the publication states. It borrows just to stay afloat. We're stuck playing catch-up, patching up public services and paying interest on our past excesses. We're bankrupt, and we should be angry. Thank you for being with me today. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. Your support truly matters. There are many important updates ahead, so stay tuned. Take care and see you soon. Goodbye.